Member for Prince George North Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure and privilege to rise today and respond to the throne speech. I congratulate the Speaker on his acclamation in this important role, and I look forward to working with you to support the democratic processes in our constitutional monarchy. These are unique and challenging times for British Columbians, and it is my deep honour to be entrusted by the people of Prince George North Caribou to represent them in this chamber and to hold the government to account. Thank you to my daughters, Elise and Danielle Clare, for their support and for keeping me grounded. They have grown into fine young women and great skiers. I am proud of both of you. I only wish that my parents, Hilliard and Helen Clare, were alive to see their oldest son elected to this House. They taught me and my younger sister Karen and two brothers Kevin and Brian important lessons about community service, responsibility, and fairness that inspired my interest in politics. I very much want to thank my friends who have supported me and my political family, that team of dedicated volunteers led by my campaign manager, the capable and effective Dr. Elizabeth Wilson, ND. Elizabeth, I appreciate your energy and dedication in building the success that got me to this position. I am likewise incredibly grateful to all those who went to some 14,000 doors, built and drove all over this massive riding to put up signs, raise funds, put me up, and give me good advice. To my staff, my Executive Assistant Ethan Williams, Senior Constituency Assistant Adam Sean, Constituency Assistant Jonathan Rain, and Administrative Assistant Sheldon Clare, thank you so much for your hard work in getting our offices up and running and for serving the day-to-day needs of our constituents. I would also acknowledge my predecessor, Coralie Oakes, who served in this place for 12 years. She has moved on to become a director with the Barkerville Heritage Trust. I wish her all the best. In contrast to comments made by the NDP, this isn't the BC Liberal Party. While there are some who have seen the light provided by Conservatives and joined us, we are quite different, as you are discovering. And there may be opportunities for some shared ideas across the floor. Let's find those opportunities and, Mr. Speaker, build bridges. I tip my hat to the classy victory of the Canadian hockey team in the Four Nations tournament in Boston last week. It demonstrated incredible teamwork and sportsmanship. And I am especially proud, Mr. Speaker, of their coach, John Cooper, a two-time Stanley Cup winner from Prince George, British Columbia. The grace and humility presented by the Canadian team should be an example for us all in what was a hard-fought tournament. Since the election in October, I have hosted several meet and greets, attended many community events, and recently held a transportation town hall meeting in Quesnel with our transportation critic, the member from Langley Abbotsford. I look forward to continuing direct engagement with my constituents and bringing their concerns to the legislature. Regardless of whose sign, if any, a constituent displayed on his or her lawn, I am here to serve everyone in my riding, and I will continue to reach across the political spectrum to engage. I have travelled most of the breadth and width of the spectacular riding of Prince George North Caribou. However, there still are some areas to see, and I include in this the community of Cluskis in the far west of the constituency. I look forward to spending time there this August in their annual powwow. As many of my fellow rural colleagues can attest, representing the hinterland of this province presents unique challenges. The scale and scope of our geography is immense. With a riding the size of Belgium, ensuring that my staff and I regularly reach its various unique communities is essential to my work as its representative. Just 2 weeks ago, I travelled some 1,000 kilometres by road, touring the southern reaches of my riding, visiting Macleese Lake, Wildwood, Williams Lake, Horsefly, Beaver Valley, Likely, Big Lake, as well as Wells. And with all this engagement, the consistent theme from people of all backgrounds and political persuasions is that times are tough, folks are struggling, and action is essential, Mr. Speaker. The deep feeling of insecurity is pervasive, and concerns for the future are all too real. What is not only expected, but absolutely needed for the constituents of Prince George North Caribou is a responsive, responsible government. This throne speech broadly fails to meet the expectations and needs of British Columbians. I cannot help but feel some déjà vu with the rhetoric this government has presented to the people of this province. So many of the platitudes in the throne speech are regurgitated commitments yet to be fulfilled from a tired government with a reduced and marginal mandate. Anything of value in the throne speech was merely lifted from the Conservative Party's platform in one of the most remarkable pivots of all time. In December, I outlined some of my key priorities for 2025, including healthcare, jobs, agriculture, mining, forestry, public safety, and transportation. Subsets of those priorities involve decriminalization and the plague that is the drug crisis. An overarching problem affecting all those issues is DRIPA. In Prince George, North Cariboo, application of DRIPA policies is driving resentment, division, and working strongly against any hope for reconciliation. The most pressing matter that I have heard from the constituency of Prince George, North Cariboo arises from our failed healthcare system. The speech from the throne reads, quote, "providing life-saving care for everyone without taking out a credit card," unquote. That comment simply does not reflect the reality that people are facing, Mr. Speaker. My constituents who are travelling out of British Columbia to get life-saving treatments are being forced to choose between their health or their credit cards. That situation is unacceptable when they have already paid taxes in British Columbia for a system that continues to fail them. My office has heard from many people worried for themselves and their loved ones about either keeping the doctor they have or waiting an indeterminate amount of time to acquire a family doctor. The other issue is the excessive delays obtaining diagnostic services and treatment. It is especially concerning for the elderly and the most vulnerable, and those affected by life-threatening conditions. Mr. Speaker, I have heard from doctors looking to leave British Columbia because they cannot provide the services their patients need. Many are overworked and stressed. Some are unable to be in reliable contact with their families. I have encountered nurses who are leaving the profession due to overwork, ill treatment, and even violence in their work environments. I have constituents who are opting to travel to Mexico, the United States, and other countries and provinces to get the health care they need, and often at considerable cost. Mr. Speaker, this is Canada. This is British Columbia. Our constituents should not have to resort to such measures to ensure their well-being. Recruiting doctors from other countries is, in effect, a brain drain that removes the best and brightest from those places and thus serves to make a provincial problem a global one. Key to this uncertainty in our healthcare system is the struggle to train, recruit, and retain healthcare workers. Mr. Speaker, despite the valiant efforts of local governments, including a joint initiative between the City of Quesnel and the Cariboo-Chilcotin Regional Hospital District Board, communities are in competition with each other to attract a limited number of health-related professionals. The throne speech states, quote, "Your government is responding by adding more nurses and family doctors, opening more community clinics and building more hospitals than ever," unquote. This ambitious claim belies the reality that medical professionals are moving away, and some are even leaving their professions. The vaccine mandates of the COVID era forced out many healthcare professionals, some who have long since left for greener pastures elsewhere, or changed their professions, never to return. To that end, I look forward to the conclusion of the series of ongoing reviews, including by the Office of the Merit Commissioner, who I had the pleasure of meeting with in Victoria last week. It's time to make these people whole. Perhaps the House could consider including municipal workers in the mandate of the Office of the Merit Commissioner to review municipal worker terminations during the COVID period. Mr. Speaker, how are people in Williams Lake and surrounding area, which includes many of my southern constituents, supposed to process such empty rhetoric when just the past Family Day weekend, again, the emergency room at Cariboo Memorial Hospital in Williams Lake closed its doors to the public? Promises of access to more healthcare professionals ring hollow in the face of closed emergency departments. You had better believe, for the constituents of Quesnel, Williams Lake, and across the rural parts of northern and interior health in my riding, they are not experiencing what the throne speech claimed, quote, "In the past 2 years, British Columbia has connected hundreds of thousands of people to a primary care provider. More are being connected every day," unquote. Is it just one for hundreds of thousands? It sure feels like it in many communities. My office has been working with the Canadian National Institute Deafblind Community Services, British Columbia, to provide profound and life-changing support for deafblind people throughout our province. A particular interest and concern is the state of intervener services moving forward. Intervener services enable some of our most vulnerable constituents to participate in society. As a constituent of mine from McLeese Lake, who my staff have met with, stated, quote, "I want to have intervening service until the day I die. I don't want to be just left wasting away in my own mind. It's very vital that all of us who are deafblind can be able to participate. We have perfectly good minds. We have intelligence. We just can't access a lot of the information that everyone else can," unquote. A further response from the Minister of Health and the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction on the standing of intervener services in British Columbia moving forward will be appreciated, and I do appreciate the preliminary response, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to finding cooperation this session for the end to hospice palliative care fees offered by the various health authorities in the province. End-of-life care groups throughout British Columbia have reached out to me to express their desire to see an end to such fees so people can die with dignity without the stress of leaving additional costs for their loved ones. The NDP claims that they are addressing crime in the throne speech and throughout the campaign. But tell that to the people of Prince George, Williams Lake, Hickson, Quesnel, and rural communities across British Columbia. These communities are withstanding the very worst of this government's failure on drugs and crime. Repeat violent offenders are back on the streets within hours, thanks to soft on-crime policies that prioritize criminals over their victims. Police officers across rural and urban communities are stretched thin. They're disrespected, and they are undermined by this government's failure to empower them to do their job and to protect our streets, Mr. Speaker. British Columbians are fed up. They deserve to be safe in their homes and in their communities, but instead of locking up real criminals, this government has decided to focus their energy on doing such things as supporting the disarming of law-abiding constituents. It is becoming clear to me and to millions of British Columbians that this government has no concern for prudent and effective public safety policy that supports families and businesses. The government claims to be tackling crime, Mr. Speaker, yet its current tendency of ignoring the activities of terrorist sympathizers, drug dealers, and organized crime is unacceptable. It's time to fight crime. To that end, Mr. Speaker, decriminalization policy is a complete and utter failure. It needs to end now. As a long-time post-secondary educator and faculty union bargainer for many years, I am concerned with the state of education in British Columbia. I was pleased to meet with the presidents of the University of Northern British Columbia and the College of New Caledonia, as well as the Faculty Association of the College of New Caledonia, to discuss their ongoing and contrasting situations. Declining enrollments, both from domestic and international students, have caused pressures on administrations, staff, and especially faculty. Of particular concern is maintaining existing programs needed to support opportunities at rural campuses and the needs of immigrants and Ukrainian refugees. In meeting with the Prince George for Ukraine group, a society advocating for those displaced by war in Eastern Europe, I found a significant need for English language training that is currently in jeopardy. These people are refugees, and they are in need of that support. As well, there is a need to return to merit and academic excellence in all levels of education, and it is frankly insulting that DEI is used to limit critical analysis. There's likewise a need to end programs that limit the role of parents in the K-12 system and that cause confusion among young children. It is a case that Conservatives oppose bullying every day, and virtue signaling around such an important matter needs to end. As someone who has negotiated for faculty and walked picket lines, I am concerned about the state of the impending and ongoing bargaining situation in BC. It will be critical to balance fiscal needs with the needs of workers while getting solutions at the negotiating tables. I was grateful to be welcomed at the picket lines of postal and railroad employees in both Quesnel and Prince George to hear their concerns and also to encourage a rapid resolution of the issues. Also, there are concerns about shutting down driver training schools in British Columbia at a time when such skills are essential for the jobs that enable our logistical operations to support all sectors of our economy. Forestry remains the economic bedrock of communities across Prince George, North Caribou. I have met with industry in my area, including Parallel Divisions and Dunkley Lumber, to discuss the growing concerns of fibre access, permitting, international trade relations, and the baggage of years of disruptive NDP forest policy. Forestry needs stability to function well. To that end, it is time to come, Mr. Speaker, to a fair softwood lumber agreement with the United States once and for all. When I met with the Horsefly River Roundtable, they raised concerns with me about the need to protect the watershed and salmonid habitat that require proper land management. While resource extraction is essential to British Columbia's economic success, it must be sensitive for requirements for fish to flourish, respecting the vital role our ecosystem plays in our economy and for First Nations food supply, as well as for commercial fishers and recreational anglers. It's really important to look after this. As our economy faces continued uncertainty, an uncertainty that certainly existed prior to the recent election of the President of the United States, clarity is required so that the private sector can have confidence in its investments into British Columbia. The mining sector is an important, long-standing contributor to the economy of Prince George, North Caribou. As we continue to diversify from a forestry-dependent economy, mining has enormous potential to provide good-paying jobs. But these jobs, both union and non-union, and the sector itself, face great uncertainty due to DRIPA and the incoming Mineral Claims Consultation Framework. I hear about this every day. My staff are called about it all the time. In the face of prolonged delays in permit processing, one hopes for sincerity in the comments from the throne speech indicating that permits will start being processed expeditiously. Our mining critic, the member for Kootenay Rockies, will be in my riding in March to hear from stakeholders deciding whether to keep investing in this unstable environment or to leave the province for good. On agriculture, it is a privilege to lend my support to the Nazco First Nations ongoing food security and sovereignty initiative. Having already achieved 2 phases, significant milestones, Phase 3 seeks to further enhance their capacity to address food security challenges. From installing modular facilities for food processing, including canning, cold storage, and dehydrating, to upgrading greenhouse systems and improving soil, Nazco First Nation aims to increase food production and extend the growing season. Phase 3 is a critical next step to improve access to nutritious and culturally relevant foods and to promote the long-term sustainability of their food systems. My office is also in discussions with Esdala First Nation to assist in enhancing their food production capacity to better serve members. Mr. Speaker, this session I will also be championing a long-standing issue of immense importance to cattle ranchers, range users, and even animal rights groups alike, and that being fencing along publicly owned railway lines. The British Columbia NDP, during their time in opposition, tabled the BC Rail Corridor Safety Act 2007, seeking to address this matter. This issue needs to be revisited, and there is room to cooperate on this file. My office has been in communication with the BC Cattlemen's Association, and I look forward to bringing forward ideas that may, in cooperation with our federal counterparts, finally resolve this issue. The Tidewater Renewables Refinery and Hydrogen Plant in Prince George face closure if BC subsidies to out-of-province competitors that prevent it from being competitive are continued. And to that end, I want to make sure that the members understand and support the member from Prince George Mackenzie's pending bill to help address that significant problem. It's important to protect this critical infrastructure by allowing it to compete on a level playing field, because if this refinery closes, it will never open again. Passing that member's bill will benefit all British Columbians. Like the throne speech claimed, quote, "When we build roads, highways, and public transit, we help make workers more productive by getting them to their jobs and back to loved ones faster," unquote. Yet, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Highway 97 and the substantial bottleneck at Quesnel, these words ring hollow for all who use this important provincial transportation corridor. During my recent town hall in Quesnel, Many issues, needs, and concerns regarding transportation were raised by local government representatives, community groups, medical professionals, and especially the public. Issues raised included the state of Highway 97 Quesnel River Bridge and the Quesnel Rail Overhead Bridge, the urgent need for the Quesnel North-South Interconnector, the serious public safety concerns with the proposed permanent closure of sections of the Quesnel-Hickson Road, the old Prince George Highway, the status of various Caribou Road recovery projects in need of redress, and the quality of general winter road maintenance. According to our own analysis, the superstructures on Highway 97 at Quesnel need replacement as they are at the end of their service life. Further to this point, we have received reports of concrete falling from the Highway 97 Quesnel River Bridge and nearly hitting local search and rescue teams while training under the structure. The North-South Interconnector is not just critical to the city of Quesnel, it is an essential component to the province's transportation network. To replace the bridges, they will need to be serviceable while their replacements are being constructed. And it is unlikely, Mr. Speaker, that engineers will continue to certify these bridges as serviceable for much longer, if at all. In addition to mitigating the increasing cost to maintain these aging structures, justifications for the Quesnel North-South Interconnector include the reduction of pollutants to the Quesnel airshed, relieving traffic congestion in the city of Quesnel, accommodating the passing of extraordinary loads to improve supply chain networks in the province, revitalizing the downtown road network opportunities in Quesnel, and improving pedestrian, cyclist, and motorist safety. Quesnel-Hickson Road is a critical alternative route in the event portions of Highway 97 north of Quesnel are shut down. Such an event, an unfortunate fatal vehicular accident, occurred in November at Hush Lake, which shut down Highway 97. Due to the closure of the Quesnel-Hickson Road, no alternative routes were available. I was at that accident, and like many others, I was forced to turn back to Prince George. This event, as noted by Quesnel physician Dr. Johannes MacDonald, prevented a premature baby in critical medical need from being transported in a timely manner from G.R. Baker Memorial Hospital in Quesnel to the University Hospital of Northern British Columbia in Prince George, a drive of approximately an hour and a half. There have been many other such incidents along the stretch, from Dunkley Lumber through to 10 Mile Lake, which have closed Highway 97 for extended periods of time. Olson Road is in dire need of repair due to numerous potholes and degrading shoulders. Having traveled these roads several times recently, I can tell you that on Olson Road there is insufficient winter maintenance with minimal sanding. Olson Road has, in addition to residential traffic, industrial, agricultural, and recreational users. This traffic includes school buses, logging trucks, and hay trucks. There's no turning lane, north or south bound, on Highway 97 at the intersection with Olson Road. The limited line of sight and undulating ground at the approaches to the intersection have resulted in numerous close calls and significant vehicular accidents, including with loaded logging trucks. Another pressing infrastructure need in my riding is the Three Rivers Community Forest application for fuel management on Dragon Mountain. Dragon Mountain possesses the North Caribou's main communications tower site. Mr. Speaker, this critical infrastructure requires protection through extensive fuel management activities. Forest Enhancement Society of British Columbia funding will enable this important work to be expedited. My office will continue working with the cities in my riding, including Quesnel, Prince George, Williams Lake, and all of the smaller rural communities, as well as with the province, to better ensure the safety of the constituents, their property, and the critical infrastructure that we all rely on during the wildfire season. This throne speech and all its claims of change raise these questions. Why did it take close to a decade, a near $10 billion deficit, and a $100 billion debt load for the NDP to finally decide, if only in rhetoric, to change course? Why was nothing done before? It has become obvious to many working people that the NDP and its champagne socialists do not represent them or their families. They are finding a welcome home in the Conservative Party of British Columbia, Mr. Speaker. I met them at their doors. Due in no small part to a legacy of poor governance for many years, this government today is woefully unprepared to address the unprecedented challenges our province faces. And before you think I am referring to our neighbours to the south when I speak of the challenges we face, in fact, what I am referring to is the ghosts of NDP policy past coming back to haunt us all, and DRIPA being a paramount example of these policies. The lack of a coherent answer on how the government plans to get shovels in the ground while accommodating those who wish to shut down industry and resource development is deafening. Police officers need and deserve our support to deal with the crime that they are facing. Let's enable Crown prosecutors to end decriminalization and put people who are committing crimes, attacking businesses, breaking windows and starting fires into places where they can be properly incarcerated or receive the treatment they need to get better. Let's get that done. Mr. Speaker, our province and its people deserve our very best efforts in these unprecedented times. I thank you for the ability to speak to you today, and I wish everyone all the very best in this session of the legislature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.